So let's get started for today. Today we're going to be starting off with a tutorial about metallic surfaces. And I'm using Portrait Studio today. We're going to start off with the fundamentals of what makes metallic surfaces. And I'm going to be focusing on texture for a little bit, just because I feel like a lot of you don't know how to do textures. Once you understand what makes it work, what the secret ID of that texture is, the core characteristic, we memorize the characteristic of a texture or material, not the reference of it, because that texture or material may take the shape of anything in the future. You might end up painting a gold-plated armor, you might end up painting gold silk. It might be anything in the future that if you know what makes gold look like gold, then you'll know exactly what to do. So a lot of you try characters, you're done with your 14-day challenge, your portraits are great, and now you want to start painting characters, and oop, that's where we find your first immediate weakness out in the field. You studied in the lab and you go out into the field for field experience, and you stumble on your first obstacle. Most likely a beginner who goes out into the world of illustration, the first obstacle they stumble on is texture. The biggest giveaway is when artists work, the textures look like they're the same thing all around. So last week I critiqued this piece, and I talked about how we have to start creating differences in the surfaces and materials we're looking at. You don't want all of your materials or everything in your illustration to look like it's made out of the same thing. So metallics, what is their characteristic that we have to memorize? You have to understand metal as a whole if you're trying to paint gold. Metal as a collective is just a reflective material, but it's not a mirror. It's not see-through. So right now I have 3 different models on Portrait Studio, and I raised the metallic surface on them all the way, so I reduced that matte texture to them. This is just all for the sake of showing you that the majority of what makes metal metal is its response to its environment. So every single one of these lights that's reflecting based off the light physics in Portrait Studio is all responding to the light source. Without the light, there would be no metal. There's one characteristic between all of them except for the sphere, but the sphere also represents it, and that's the banding. That's the key characteristic behind metal. So I'm going to make a very basic kind of little, and the first thing that you're going to do for the shape that you have is make it respond to the light. Okay, so what's the difference between this? What's that change that makes an object this shiny or this matte? And that is, did you notice the difference? It's the light. We're revealing where the light source is. The secret is in that almost immediate spike in the highlight. This is the surface, any given surface, and the light, the more it gets to do this uninterrupted, the shinier this is going to be. Most textures don't allow light to do this. Most textures basically lock in some light and letting every other, let's just say every other band through. So it's going to hog some of the light and reflect some of the light. So in the end, you get like a dispersed, evened out matte surface. Do you see what's happening? But in objects that, and this is the surfaces that have micro texture, meaning anything that has a texture, anything when you hold it, it's not super smooth mirror-like. So the more you raise the micro texture slider, the less reflection you have, the more matte you have. So what's happening here when you apply the dodge tool in this case, you're just showing that the light reached this surface uninterrupted. Address its response to the light source outside of it being shiny. Basically, where's the light source coming from? So we're doing that. And then we're going to decide, okay, the light source is coming from up above. And so we're just going to start adding this banding. All you have to do is make sure that you're copying that core characteristic of light, that core behavior of light. So if you're pretending the way metal is, that's it. You just have to pretend that you have light behaving the way light. You're still copying it scientifically, but you're not numerically, mathematically capturing exactly what that light would do in that scenario. So then we move into gold. What makes something look like gold? What makes something behave like gold? It's everything metal already does. It's everything I just taught you. All you're doing is just adding a color. I'm just using dodge tool, but all dodge tool is doing is saturating and highlighting. So if you want to break this up into doing it manually with a brush so you can carry this skill over into traditional, all you have to do is keep sliding down as you slide up. So that's all dodge tool is doing, is it's saturating and highlighting. So in the end, you're using a combination of this top right high saturation combined with the white, whereas dodge tool is just doing all of that at the same time. So it's saturating and introducing the yellow. So the secret with painting gold is exactly the same thing. You're copying exactly what you're seeing, except that one thing that silver or steel has that we can't do with dodge tool, what dodge tool fails to do, is to reduce saturation. Because if something is perfectly reflective, it means it's reflecting both the light's magnitude, which is how bright it is, and the light's color, which is white. So in this case, what you have to do is keep saturation on the outside edges of the main reflection band, so that banding. So back here, this is the true nature of the light source, meaning the light reached the surface and then bounced off uninterrupted. Completely uninterrupted. The extreme of completely uninterrupted is what? Can anyone tell me what happens when light is completely uninterrupted when it is reflecting on a surface? If we had a spectrum, we had over here the roughest material that you have, maybe like some kind of suede microfiber or something, extremely, it becomes a mirror. Beautiful, yes, it becomes a mirror. So you have microfiber here. Light gets in here and just gets trapped in these little the fibers that just kind of roam around, hogging light, creating small little pockets for light to go into and get trapped. We can still see the object, we don't see reflection. Over here, perfectly flat object, purely reflective, contains no color in it. Light goes in and goes out, and we have a perfect mirror reflection. Light carries pictures around for the eyes to process. If we took this mirror and warped it, what would happen? Our picture on that mirror would be perfectly reflected, except for one thing, the proportions are all off. The light just doesn't really get to do what it's supposed to do. Sometimes over here it reflected nicely and your face looks normal, but then your neck is extended because now the light reflected this way and expanded. And I'm not going to go into the exact physics of why it happens, but the light just gets distorted while it's trying to create a perfect picture. And that's how you create more realistic looking surfaces, is that you are understanding that the reason reflective objects behave the way they do is because they are reflecting this surrounding landscape. So we're adding a little bit of blue on that gold, just a little bit. It's not really going to hog in all that color. It's a very saturated material. But on this steel plate right here, absolutely reflect the blue of the sky. Reflect the green of the grass surrounding the object. Reflect this and that. Reflect whatever is surrounding the object nearby as you're painting that material. So someone posted this almost material study, texture study to the subreddit, which is, by the way, where you can post stuff to be critiqued for free. What I'm seeing here is a little pocket of gold here I'm going to be taking care of. So this person posted it on subreddit and said, something's missing. I don't know what it is. This is what was missing. All of your textures look exactly the same. They don't behave like the object they're supposed to be. So before, kind of looked like it was made out of wood. It was so matte, and that's the secret to wood, that it's matte. It doesn't have shine to it. And then after it has a bit more shine, it's reflecting some of the nearby surface. All right, so do some texture studies, you guys. I will post a full texture list for you, and go through them, and I'll just for the next couple of weeks on my channel, I'm going to be just covering different textures and what makes them work and what makes them behave like that texture, what gives them that particular characteristic. Okay, so before, after, study some textures, make a difference in your art, starting with materials, understanding how the light behaves per material, and go from there. Next time I'll talk, maybe I'll keep using this piece to critique it, section by section, depending on what we're looking at. One of the pieces that you guys should do for homework, one of the texture assignments, is precious metals, precious rocks. So jade, beryl, agate, a kind of really, really cool see-through rocks that, or metamorphic rocks that kind of trap in a lot of light. And then yeah, just foliage. There's a lot in that list that I'll keep adding. It's pinned at the top of the subreddit if you guys want to find that assignment. So if you want to do homework for this texture unit that we're doing, go to istebrak.com and click on the subreddit icon right here. The assignment is pinned at the top. Right here, the assignment is pinned at the top. So please go through it, read through it. I'm going to be expanding this list, but for now, you guys have metallic surfaces, hair, clouds, and fabric and clothing. So hair is one that you guys have been waiting for a long time. I will cover hair with you if you guys do the work. If there's nothing to critique, there's no lesson. So do the work. I'll try to look through all of them and I'll tell you how I'll give you the secret code that makes that texture work. I'll do the thinking for you. Obviously, I want you guys to think, but I'll do the thinking for you as well. And then show you how to add saturation. For clouds, it's the same thing. I'll break it down for you so that you guys can just get a head start on your discovery of textures and materials. Do not do material balls. Do not do those little ball shapes that have little textures on them. A ball is not a good representation of that particular texture, whatever it may be. You can't just have a ball and just have that as the only shape that texture is delivered in. Textures are also reliant on the form shape they're delivered in. Hair is delivered flat and responding to gravity, just like fabric, whereas fabric is delivered cylindrical and also responding to gravity. Metal can be in the shape of a circle, sure, go for it, but not necessarily bark or tree, which can be cylindrical or flat. So please don't do material balls. Yes, you can understand the texture of the surface, but texture isn't just about surface texture. Texture is also about the shape silhouette. Write that back to me. So do not do material balls. I'll add that to the subreddit assignment page. Hopefully you guys understand that. Do not do those little balls. Do the shape of the texture itself. Good luck with all your homework. Thank you guys for watching. This is going to be the format moving forward. A small little lesson and a critique after it. So please make sure I have something to critique. Don't leave me hanging, because then there's not going to be another lesson like this one. I need homework to host a class. And that's it. Thank you everyone for coming. If you guys learned something today, please, please, please consider joining as just $1 a month patron on Patreon. It's just called the Watcher tier, and it's just $1 a month. It's $12 a year for all this educational content. I really appreciate it. For those who have already joined, thank you so much for becoming watchers. And that's it for today. I'll see you guys on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Good luck with your homework. Bye.